Welcome back, everyone, to another Chatting with Wisdom on our weekly interview series. And I am really excited to be here today. And so I'm crossing my fingers. We are 8 seconds in, and we have not got disconnected from Facebook. Yay! And so Melanie and I are just talking about how there is just so much challenges with the Facebook connections. And so this is wonderful. So today we're actually going to talk with Melanie, and I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name, Melanie. How do you pronounce your last name?
Oh yeah, totally okay. It's Verstraete.
Verstraete. Okay. And so she's going to be joining us, and she's the love and relationship. Oh. Now we've got some feedback. Where is that coming from?
It went away for me. It went like I heard.
Yeah, it's gone now. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the intro. So as I was saying to Melanie, is that we really just come on authentically. So whatever it is that happens. Tech is tech, and we just kind of roll with it because like we're not superhuman. And so she is the love and relationship expert behind the Wild Heart Life. So you can connect with her on Instagram and Facebook, or you can actually explore more on her website. And so Melanie has dedicated her life to helping others break out of unhealthy relationship patterns and find true love. With her own transformative journey and expertise, she empowers individuals to understand the root mechanism of harmful cycles and embrace healthy relationships. Today, we're going to talk about unveiling the secrets of relationship chemistry. I love that. And the fact that neither one of us are sciencey, this is actually kind of interesting that is what you actually call it, is the relationship chemistry. So we're going to join in as Melanie dives into the dynamics of masculine and feminine energies, exploring the polarity, attraction, and prevention of romance, fading in relationships, discovering groundbreaking insights into maintaining passion and deepening connection. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. How are things?
Things are great. Things are crazy out there, though, but things are great with me.
Awesome. That is really awesome. So Tell me a little bit more about who you are. So like, how did you get into this? Like, tell me a little bit more.
Of course. Really, really, really long story short. I grew up pretty dysfunctional. I had 6 stepdads by the time I was 21. I didn't know my dad until about, 14, 15 years ago. And to say that it had a real profound effect on my ability to relate with the opposite sex, also just relationships in general, it was a challenge. I was a people pleaser. I became a chameleon so that I wouldn't get left and people would love me. I hardly ever spoke up for myself. I felt very alone and lonely inside, and like there was something like innately wrong with me. And at the same time, if you knew me, you would never know that. I was so good at wearing this shield of protection and like just putting out there that I'm good. Everything's good. But like inside, complete opposite. So it was actually how I became a relationship coach. I'm like an unlikely coach. And what I mean is that I didn't set out to be a coach. I didn't set out to, I thought my life was going to turn out very, very different. And I think many people say like, what's it like, tell God your plan and, what's it say? Like, watch him laugh or whatever, like, and, kind of in essence that's what that was. But for me, my plan was just to survive. So how this came about was I was, in essence, being smacked awake when I was having this realization of, oh my God, I'm getting divorced again for the second time. Okay. And this was, roughly 7 years ago or so. And it was such a profound experience. It literally smacked me awake. I started to think about, how did I get here, right? Like I could have blamed ex-husband number 2 and I can blame the second ex-husbands and I can say this one's toxic, this one's a narcissist, this one's an asshole, whatever, right? You could say all these things, but like the truth was I picked them. I chose them. So I'm the common denominator here. So what's wrong with me that I choose men like this, that I choose men that mistreat me, that belittle me, that talk down to me, that give me the silent treatment, that don't make me feel safe, seen, and heard, right? And so that was such a beautiful journey. And it was like, it was a discovery of self. And in that journey, because in all honesty, I didn't even know who I was in that moment in time. That was like another like, psh, holy crap, Melanie, you have 3 kids, 2 husbands, you've had multiple careers, and you don't know who you are. So yeah, I knew who I was in my roles, right? But who's I in my heart? Who is I here to be and to do and to have, right? Who is Melanie? And that self-discovery was so profound, so beautiful, so hard, and so rewarding all at the same time. Wow. Coming home to yourself, right? And in that, and when I tell you, like, I worked on me like it was my job, like that is not an understatement. I am not exaggerating. I was obsessed. I felt broken. And so I was obsessed with fixing whatever it is that I felt was wrong with me, right? And as I started to unlearn, as I started to just like shed all the layers of like just crap, right? It's like this unbecoming, right? You're just shedding all this crap that you're not, that your parents told you were, that society told you were, all these little boxes that were put in, you're this because of this, you're this because of that, blah, 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 blah. Shedding it all to reveal the real me. And then my life started to get profoundly different. My relationships got better, even though most of my relationships were pretty good, but not my relationship with men. That was awful. So I used to attract trolls. Now I'm attracting kings. I have inner peace for the first time, right? This is like 7 years ago. For the first time in my whole life, because this is how I felt, like, just like in knots my whole life. So my nervous system is like, oh, what is this, right? This is amazing. I felt genuine joy and like in love with life. And so many things made sense. I had so much more understanding, compassion, not only for myself, but for my mom, for my dad, for all my exes, right? Like for all of us as humanity. And in that, because my life got so different, I just had this overwhelming knowing that this is what you're here to do. This is what you're here to teach. Like, who better to teach than somebody who knows what it feels like to be on that side of toxic and unhealthy, right? Who better than the person who has walked the path? And it just became this like profound sacred responsibility is how I look at it. It's a gift. It's a gift and it's a duty at the same time.
And I love that. And I love how one of the things that, and it sounds like one of the things that you've needed to do is fall in love with yourself.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. So like you really needed to, and I know that it sounds cliche and I have people say that all the time. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, but if you can't love yourself, then how are you going to expect the right people to love you?
Exactly.
Right. If you can't treat yourself with respect, then how are you going to expect somebody else to treat you with respect?
Yes.
And so, and that's kind of like putting that mirror up. And so I often have those conversations of like, okay, but would you treat that other person that way? Well, no, of course not. Well, then why is it okay for them to treat you that way? Because you're allowing it. You're allowing that to happen. So if you want them to respect you, then you need to have enough respect for yourself to be able to put those limits and boundaries on that say, yeah, that's not happening. Yeah, that's not okay. And I'm not okay with the way that you're treating me. And either 1, walk away, or 2, work on the relationship. But it has to be, both people need to be working on that together, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I think something that most people, they just don't get, right? And I'm hoping that sometimes I just want to go around and be like, come on. You gotta see this.
what I have found, okay, in my personal experience, and what I have found is a common denominator with the majority of people that work with me is there are unhealed wounds, for lack of a better word, from our childhood that until we address them and until we feel into them and stop burying them and, oh, my childhood was fine. It's fine. It's fine, right? Like we're just kind of like in our mind, we just kind of want to brush things off. And it doesn't have to be so dramatic and traumatic for it to leave a mark on you as a kid. Like nobody gets to judge for you how you felt in your experience with your caregivers, right? Because we want to paint this picture of like it had to be like extreme sexual abuse or emotional abuse or physical abuse. No, not necessarily. It can be being spanked. It can be the dad works all the time and never has time for the children, right? It could be literally the dad left or the mom left. It could be the mom that is such a perfectionist that there's nothing that you could do to please her, right? There's so many things. And again, it's not about blame because they only did the best they could do with what they knew, right? But it doesn't take away the responsibility that we all have of if we're going to relate with one another and we're going to do it in a healthy way, then, if our triggers are coming up and our shadows are coming up and our wounds are coming up and, we're like lashing out, like it's, let's be with this, right? Like that, like it's showing itself because it needs your love. It needs your acceptance. It needs your attention. It doesn't need you to stuff it down and make yourself wrong or bad for it. Like that's what you felt when you were little. And society is so, what's the word? Obsessed. I'll just say that with looking outside of ourselves. Oh, when I find that guy, right? When I find that woman, that one, then I'll be happy. No, you're going to find the same person in a different body until you do the damn work. Okay. Like that is the truth of it.
And there's nothing more important than that being direct.
Yes.
Right. So like that directness is like so important. And I love how you are just so direct with it. It's not going to change if you don't make the changes, if you don't change the way that you are expecting things to be. So it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Exactly. And again, we're so programmed, right? Watch Hollywood, watch the movies, like pay attention to like our world as a whole. And we've bought into a lot of lies. We've bought into a lot of bullshit. We have been conditioned into a lot of stuff that really limits our ability to experience this great, big, beautiful, gorgeous life that we came here to experience. And until you address the internal stuff that's keeping that happening for you, it's not possible for the outside world to shift until you shift.
Exactly.
And that was like the dose of reality that I had to understand. And that's what transformed everything for me, is like that full comprehension of, it's me. I did this and only I can do something different, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not to blame, right? Like, it's not to get into, like, I'm not even going to go down this like dark hole of, horrible things that happen to young children. I can't even explain that. It's not about that. It's about when you become an adult, right? When you're a child, you're pretty much helpless and you're under the rule of whoever is there. And it's your job to stay safe. And so if that means that you succumb to whatever tyranny is going on over there, then that's what you do. Because literally your life depends on it, right? Yes. Then when you get older, when you realize, hey, my life really isn't quite the way that I want it to be, right? Hey, I hate this job. Or, hey, why am I staying married to this person that's been mistreating me? Or, hey, whatever, right? It's whatever light bulb goes off for you. There is no magic pill that is going to fix it.
Nope.
It's you. You, right? Like nobody's coming to rescue you. You know who's coming to rescue you? You.
Exactly. And until you figure that out, it's not going to change, right?
Yes,
and that is just so important. And so, like, yes, there are different circumstances where like, so again, like what you were saying is like not to minimize anybody's experience. And so like somebody who's had any large traumatic events, they weren't necessarily caused by you, but how you respond to them and how you're going to deal with them is going to be how that happens. And so I was having a conversation with somebody not that long ago that it was like, there was huge tragedy that happened, huge traumatic event that was going on for them. And they felt that they could behave any which way that they want to because this happened to them. Doesn't give you a green light to mistreat others. Like it doesn't allow that to happen. And so people can't mistreat you, but you can't in turn do the same to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly. And it's in its purest form when we're doing things like that, it's us trying to get back to a place of empowerment, right? And we're doing it at such an unconscious level. We're not actually intending to hurt someone, but by doing that thing, right, it makes us in that moment feel like I have control over the situation where I never had control, right? I am empowered here where before I felt powerless. Like as an example, I'll give an extreme example. Statistically, those who are abused as young children will either abuse or become abused.
yes.
Very, very common, right? Not because they want to. There's nobody that wants to actually do that, but because they were conditioned into that behavior, right?
Yep.
And when they lash out, if they become the abuser, it's to give themselves that a little semblance of power back when they didn't have it when they were little. It doesn't make it right. I'm not condoning this and I'm not condemning it. It's just the understanding of the human psyche and why we do the things that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really important for us to be able to recognize that so that we can make changes. So, so I didn't have many stepfathers. I only had my both of my parents, but things were not great growing up, and so so we had a lot of dysfunction in our home as well. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom would actually revert to like different strategies and techniques to try and make things happen or whatever. I have a really good relationship with my mom. My dad has since passed. I had a really good relationship with my dad as well, but it was growing up, it was like that wasn't the greatest. It wasn't always the best things. But at the age of 14 is when circumstances had dictated that we actually had to go for family counseling, had to do family programming. But then what happened was that my cat is going to cause trouble. And so what ended up happening, there's a fly that he's trying to get. Oh, God. I have all of my drinking bottles are like in my window and he's like trying to get that fly and he's going to knock everything down. So I'm going to grab him. Oh, I'm going to grab him because he's going to tear everything apart. And so then, but yeah, so like starting at the age of 14 is when I started to do that work on myself. So it was forced as part of agency circumstances. Children's Aid was involved at the time. And so it was like, so then we were doing so then we started doing the work. And in Ontario, in Canada, at the age of 12, we are allowed to access mental health services without an adult's permission. Sometimes I think that's great. Sometimes I don't. But in my case, it was great because then it allowed me to be able to continue with services that allowed me to get well. And so from the age of 14, that has been my journey. And I still knew, as much as I've done the work, there's still lots of new work, right? There's always some of those hidden shadows that come back and it's like, oh, where did that come from? Right. So like, but it's just really important for us to be able to recognize where are those things coming from, because it doesn't make me good. It doesn't make me bad. It just makes me have to try and figure out how to resolve it.
Right. It's like, it's not at all about good or bad. I mean, at our core, we're innately good. I mean, we're God's highest creation. How can we actually be bad? Right. It's just technically What I have found so profound in such deep work is when I mean, there's lots to this, right? But this seems like so relevant right now. Until we can not only accept, understand, acknowledge, and love our bad parts, we can actually never be whole. The parts that we were shamed for, the parts that we were embarrassed for, the parts that we were criticized for, the parts that, you know, were the parts that we would all rather die than show anyone, the parts that inside of ourselves were like, oh, this makes me wrong or bad, stuff it down, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
You can never become whole until you actually accept those parts, because those parts actually aren't bad. They served a purpose in your life. So like for me, as an example, I carried a ton of shame. I was sexually reprimanded and carried a ton of shame from a very early age. And I actually technically did nothing wrong for that shame to come upon me. But my mom shamed me, right? She embarrassed me, she shamed me. And because of that, I carried that shame for years and years and years. And I carried such good girl conditioning because of that shame, right? And so it wasn't until I actually felt that I allowed myself to feel the shame in my body. I allowed myself to understand that sexuality, just because you're a woman, there's no scarlet letter on you. It doesn't make you wrong or bad, and it's not sinful or shameful. And we're talking about like loving exchanges of that, right? But it didn't matter for me because I felt it for such a long time in my nervous system. So you could call that shadow work. You could call that darkness. You could call it the bad, whatever it is for you, right? I have found that in myself and in my clients, until I did the work to love the hell out of those parts of me too, not just my light, not just my light. Your light's easy to love. The good parts of us are easy to love, right? It's the parts that society has deemed as wrong or bad or shameful or sinful, or you need to hide. It's your ugly parts, whatever you want to call it. We all know what they are because we don't want anybody to see them, especially ourselves. And so we'll deny those parts, right? Because what do they feel like? Oh God, if somebody knew this about me, right, I would be criticized. I'd be condemned. It's literally so deeply genetically coded in us that we feel like we'll be ostracized from the community, right?
Absolutely.
I will be kicked out. I will no longer belong, right?
Exactly.
And so it can have such a grip on us. And until we do the work to face that part, to love the shit out of that part, understand why it was there in the first place, that's how you integrate it. You don't integrate it by condemning it. You don't integrate it by making yourself wrong or bad, by medicating, by drinking, by doing drugs, by pretending it's not there. No, you got to feel it. You got to be with it. You got to understand it, accept it, love it. And then, you feel good. You feel whole. It no longer has control over you because that will control your life.
Exactly. And so, and it's part of who we are. And we don't have to continue to be in that space if we don't want to be. We can choose whichever way that we want to. And it is just so important for us to be able to do that. And so, and I love how like you bring that to light. And one of the things that you talked about was one of the things that you said is that like we're going to get booted out of the community. And so one of the things that the women within our community have been able to discover is that there are so many things that it's like, oh, that sounds so much like me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really not as alone as I seem to think that I am. I am not as unique as I seem to think that I am, right? Not that we're not unique, because we are all unique and we all bring those pieces of things, and our circumstances are not 100% the same way as for everyone, but it's the feeling, those feelings of shame and guilt and wanting to like just hide them and like not share them and be part of that is just, it is so. And that's one of the reasons why I love group work. Like people often say, well, can you not just do more one-on-ones? And it's like, I can, but you're not going to get the same as you will, because you're really, there's so many parts of each other that we can actually help each other grow and build. And by not feeling isolated and alone, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So true. So true. Yeah. I
Right?
I find the one-on-one work is very obviously deep and beautiful. And to your point, when you're in community, when you're in group, now you belong, now you feel safe, seen, and heard. And to your point, oh, I'm not the only one dealing with this kind of thing.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And it really makes a huge difference. And so at least that's my experience. Like that's my experience over the last over the last 20 some years is that has been like doing. And so, like I said, people are like, oh, do we have to do group? Yeah, we do. And I had a client who was a few years ago. She's like, I don't do group. And I'm like, just come and try. And so like, it's our tribe and she has that support and she has these people that she can reach out to. And yes, some of the circumstances, and we do some of the one-on-one stuff together, but like some of the circumstances are that she's got these people that can say, hey, and when we're feeling like the entire world is not there to support us, we have a tribe, we have a community that can actually help support us, that we do not have to feel alone and isolated and not be able to have that connection. So important, especially I feel more now than ever. I feel like, COVID knocked us off this like weird place where we were in isolation. It was so bad for us. Yeah.
And, the more social we get on social media, the more disconnected we actually are to each other. So I love that you're doing that. It is so important. We're tribal, communal creatures. Like this is who we are. We're not meant to be alone and in isolation. that's like a death sentence for us. Like we need touch. We need to, look in each other's eyes. We need hugs. We need support. Like we need these things. They're nervous.
And like, even just like, so when you're talking about that, like with my dad was unwell. And so during COVID, it was like, first the initial lockdown was like, we need to protect him. And like, nobody's allowed to go over, and like making sure that we had all these things. And so then that in itself almost killed him. And so when they did the second lockdown, we were like, we're not following those rules when it comes to my dad. Like we'll follow whatever other rules, but when it comes, so then that was the messages to my sisters. It was like, do not isolate him again. He can't, like he was with my mom, so he wasn't alone, but it's like, he needs that interaction. He needs the grandchildren. He needs those things. And so, because it was just so important, and he couldn't survive. He would never have survived a second full on lockdown within our family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I believe it. Yeah. And not to get into that, but just to talk a little bit more about it for a second. It's like, you see all these like stupid statistics. I'm going to use that word stupid intentionally, of like, COVID related deaths. And I'm not making light of any of it, but the thing that most people don't talk about, and will probably never actually know, because we all know this was bullshit. Okay. I'm just going to like put it out there. I'm not saying it didn't exist, but the extreme bullshit, the things we'll probably never know was, what did this do to our mental wellness? How many people did that actually kill from suicide or drugs or depression or overdoses, right? Like, where are those statistics?
Loneliness,
never
like
know.
literally a broken heart.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like I know that like physical abuse was up because people were home together. Like there's so much darkness that actually came from that. That was so unnecessary. Yes.
And then like, it was just so, and then we're definitely not going to go into that because that's not our conversation today. We're going to go back into like, so apparently you and I can definitely get on our soapboxes together.
Yes.
But like, it's just, and because my background is mental health, like, it's like, I watched this happen and it was like, this is just crazy. Like how are these relationships going to survive? right? So like that is like kind of going back into like the whole point of what we're talking about today is like all of these relationships. In order for us to be able to be well, we need relationships. And so whether they are partner relationships or they are people relationships, we need relationships because that is definitely, and first and foremost, we need that relationship with ourselves so we can identify who we are. And I think that that's kind of where you've kind of gone with what it is that you've been sharing, is that first and foremost, it's us. Yeah. And then it's being able to build within those relationships and attracting the people who we want to be able to have in our lives and what it is that we expect. Right. So like if you're going to let somebody talk shit to you, then you're going to have somebody talk shit to you. Yeah. But if you're going to say, yeah, I'm not okay with that, then that person's not going to stick around because that's not how they want to handle things. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I have found, again, in my own experience and with the clients I work with, that one of the main reasons we tolerate shitty relationships, toxic relationships, unhealthy, whatever label you want to give it, to me, it's all the same.
Yep.
Is because we don't have a good relationship with ourselves. There is no way, right? Like the women that you and I are right now, there's no way that we would allow anyone, I don't care who they are, if they're family, friend, boyfriend, husband, doesn't matter, to talk to us or to treat us like crap. And then let them get away with it and then do it again and again and again, right? Like, I get we're all human.
Yep.
We can mess up, but then we make it right and then we change the behavior and then it's okay. But yeah, no, you will not allow somebody to treat you badly because you don't treat yourself badly. So you're certainly not going to let somebody else treat you badly.
And that's the hard work that I've actually gone through, right? So like I said, from the age of 14, I'm 54. And so like I've had, actually that's 40 years. Oh my gosh. So for the last 40 years, I've been working on myself and I have continued to work on myself. And so, and I was in a situation where I had somebody that was actually doing that just most recently, and they were treating me in a way that I would not allow it to be tolerated. And so when I addressed it, it was like, oh my gosh, I thought that you would be more understanding because of your experience. And it's like, that's the reason why I'm not okay with it.
Exactly.
Right. Like, no, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. You're like, I can understand where it's coming from. Doesn't mean I'm going to allow it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Like that was, and that was like a huge eye opener. It was like, okay, so because I'm kind and compassionate and understanding, and because I understand where you're coming from, I'm going to be okay with the way that you're addressing me? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's the mistake. Sometimes people who don't know, right, who haven't yet come to that level of awareness of self, right, they will mistake your kindness for weakness.
Well, and in this particular situation is exactly what it is that you were talking about at the earlier part of it, is that this particular person had said, like, I'm not allowing somebody else to have power, and I am going to assert myself. And instead of assertion became aggression, right? So like in terms of being able to handle that, was dealing with it differently. And it's like, okay, so like that's fine. And you can voice whatever it is that you need to. However, this is what I'm going to accept. And this is the only thing that I'm going to accept. And so for now, we've addressed it. And so we will move forward. But you've already been forewarned that I will not tolerate it. Yeah. And in the moment, I will address it. Whereas I allowed you to do what you needed to do. And then I took some time and I had to because initially it was like, I was taken aback by that. And it's like, and then I'm like, hey, I've done all this work. Like, I wouldn't allow I would be like, first and foremost saying to my clients that I wouldn't be okay with that behavior. And yet I allowed it to happen. So then I got, again, like the shame, the guilt, all those other things came creeping back up again. It's like, hey, I've worked too hard to be able to feel these things. Like, that's not happening. And so then it was like addressed. And so, but again, it's that assertion of power, like you talked about before. It's like somebody who was wanting to be able to do that in that circumstance. Right. So.
Yeah. And that's like, to get just, I don't know how much more time we have left, but to kind of get into like the relationship chemistry a little bit. What I found that's so fascinating with like the men and women today in relationships and how how most people are relating, it's men are primarily, right, either on one side of the unhealthy spectrum, meaning they are in that aggressive, not assertive, right? Aggressive power over dominance over a woman. I'm a man, right? So therefore that means I get to control, right? That's unhealthy. Or the other spectrum is that they've become so emasculated that they're more like women, meaning they're super passive. And then on the other side of women, we have all the boss babes out there that are so in their masculine energy that they're repellents to the very kind of man that they actually probably want. And then they are magnets to the passive, more feminine ones because, well, why? It's the polarity, right? It's the yin and the yang. So of course they're gonna, magnetize to each other. But those relationships don't work because both are in unhealthy energetic dynamics. And then, or you have the other side of the women that are so into like the victim passive. No, I actually go into like the victim manipulation. This might ruffle some feathers here, but I'm going to say Me Too shit. I know that there's truth in Me Too, but there's a whole lot of lies and like a man witch hunt in that too.
At times, yes. Just
saying, shouldn't be able to throw something up 20 years later. It's kind of bullshit without evidence, but hey, what do I know? So what? So we need to get ourselves, the work is always here. Again, let's come back to here, right? It's not about fixing your guy or fixing your girl. You can't fix anybody. Like this is the only person, this is your project right here, right? So it's becoming in tune with your true core essence, right? 80% of us women, our core essence is feminine. Of course, you could call it, we have structured feminine too, or you could call it masculine, yin yang, we all have it, like whatever you want to call it is the same thing. And then the majority of men, about 80% statistically, their core is that masculine, is that yang, is that penetrative force, right? And when we're both in our core energy, right? So we're healthy, we're consciously relating, we're not in our wounds or in our childhood or in our triggers or in our crap, right? Whoa, like you want to talk about a power couple. That's when you're having like mind-blowing love-making sessions. That's when you're changing your life and changing the world. That's when you are like truly like your life force, like, wow, that is divine union. That's love. That love. That's what we came here for. We didn't come here for all this unhealthy crap. We came here to experience that.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things, like, so when you're in a healthy, when you're in a healthier space, you actually get to see a lot more of that. And so like we have a local couple here that their daughter actually shared a picture of them dancing in the living in the kitchen. And so like, and they've been married for like 50 plus years, I'm sure. And because like she's my age, so and then it's her parents. And like you know, this couple has been around for a long time, and they have exactly that. They have this balance between the two of them. They've worked together all of their lives. They've owned businesses together. They do all these things together, and they're supposed to be retired, and they just opened up a new business and working together again. And so watching them dance around the living room or dancing around the kitchen, they'd gotten, I don't know what the context was, but they'd gotten up from their dinner table and they were dancing in the kitchen, and their family was taking video of them doing that. And it's like, oh, that is true love. Like that is that 50 plus years of being in a healthy relationship. And it's like, that is what I aspire to have. Right.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. And another thing that a lot of people aren't getting is like relationships are changing. Like we're wanting more. We are expecting more from ourselves, and we're expecting more from our partner. Like, women got married before truly to survive, like we did, or we were going to get killed, and we didn't have the ability to generate any income because it was never given to us. Like, let's just be real here, right? So we don't marry for survival anymore. We can make money. Holy shit, finally, right?
It's like, and that's one of the things that I would say to my husband all the time. I don't need you in my life. I want you in my life.
Want, not need, right? Exactly. And of course, at some level, we do have a need because we
do need them. Yes.
Yes. But it's not this need of survival need. Yeah. It's like, it's this, I know what I bring to the table as a healthy woman, and I love and appreciate what you bring to the table as a healthy man. And together we bring out the best in each other.
Yes.
Together, right? Like we're awesome. We're awesome alone. We're already whole. There's nobody needs to complete you. Okay. We're already whole. So when two wholes come together, like,
yes.
Wow. Yes.
And wow. It really makes a huge difference. And so like just recently I met a wonderful, wonderful couple. And so like they both had their own things and their own relationships and whatever, and they both worked on their own healing. And one of the things that this woman has shared with us, and I think that this is just, it was just like so heartfelt, is she said like, I never knew because like I know who I am now. And so, and he allows me to be who I am and supports me where I need to continue to do the healing. Right. So like, it's just, and it's so beautiful. And so they've both experienced losses and different things in their lives. And so just being able to be there and supporting each other, it was like, oh, this is exactly what it is that we need. And these are the role models that we need in our lives so that we see these healthy relationships. But like you said, until we can actually be whole with ourselves, within ourselves, it's not going to happen. Right. So I know that when my children's father and I separated, that's one of the things I was like, oh, like, I'm like really interested in like, and we were having conversations like, oh, well, I'm really interested, but like, there's like whatever. And he's like, but you are so independent and you are so, and that's exactly the vibe that you give off. Yeah. And until you actually find that person, he said, like, you don't need anyone. You know what it is that you want. And this is where things are coming from. And like, that was like really interesting coming from, because we had just recently separated. It wasn't that long that we had separated. And it was like, oh. And he's like, but you know what you want.
Yeah.
Right. So
there's nothing that, there's only so much work we can do on our own. Right.
Yeah.
There is nothing. Okay. Nothing out there that is more triggering, more humbling, because you're like, oh shit, I thought I addressed this, right? More to help you become an even better version of yourself than a romantic relationship, because you think you did the work and you probably did. And it'll be like, oh, you thought you dealt with this abandonment wound over here? Hilarious, right?
New onion level.
Yeah, because if you allow yourself, right? A lot of people don't allow themselves, but if you allow yourself in a relationship, it is so deep. It is so raw. You feel just like cracked open and exposed, right? Like seen, truly seen in all of you. That's what I meant, like the dark, the shadow, like that especially needs to be seen. That to your nervous system is like, holy crap, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, because like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. It's like it's 23 plus years. And so when I was, so I would be working with people and they're like, they'd come back and they're like, I thought I dealt with this. And it's like, you did at this level. And so like, there's this onion that peels. And so like, and one of the analogies that I use all the time is like, when we are dealing with onions, we tend to like cut and chop up the onion. But when you actually peel off a layer of onion, there's always that skin that actually, if you actually took one layer off, that skin would form that security to be able to protect the onion. And so then, and it's each one of those. And as we continue to peel until we actually get to that core, then things come back and they come back up, but it's because we're dealing with a new level, new layer. We're not dealing with what it is that we had already dealt with. Yes. That part of it has already been done, but this new level, this new layer is what we're dealing with now.
Yeah. And there is so much healing in that space if you allow it, right? if you allow your partner and you're the partner to be seen in your mess, to be seen in a way that, you know, you had to hide those parts of yourself, usually as a child, because you were made to be bad or wrong, or again, you know, we talked about shamed. There's so much healing, like you just don't even know, but it feels scary. It feels really scary. That's why you have to do some level of work within yourself to start to like put together the pieces, right? To start to have some kind of awareness of you, what makes you click. Why did you do the things that you did? Because only when you can do that to yourself can you now then be empathetic and understanding of why, oh, that's why he did that. Oh, that's why she did that. And no longer look at it as like this personal attack or judge them on it, right? Or like, oh, they did this to me. No, they're just being themselves. This is them, right? Yeah, it is fun. It is interesting. And really, like, we came here for that level of like deep, profound, like there's no movie that comes close to it except for maybe The Notebook. There's no there's no books that come close to it, but I feel that is, to me, that is part of the reason God made a man and a woman. Now, you know, we can get into other things here, but I don't want to go down that road. But it is the masculine energy and is the feminine energy and in every healthy relationship, even if it's not heterosexual, there still is always a masculine energy and a feminine energy, because that's what creates the polarity. That's what creates the passion. That's what creates the fire, the chemistry, the
Absolutely. And like, and those two energies. And one of the things that you had mentioned at some point was like, we have both of these energies. And so when we can actually balance those two energies within ourselves, and we find that person that has that energy balanced within themselves, and then that brings us back into that space, right? So then we are bringing together both pieces and parts of that whole thing, and bringing it back to exactly where we need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. I love that. Is there anything else that you think is really important that people know before we do head out?
There's a lot. I would just say, be so gentle and kind with yourself in your life. I feel we're so quick to judge ourselves. We're so quick to talk shit to ourselves. We're so quick to tell ourselves how wrong and bad and screwed up and what a failure and you're stupid and all these things. We're so good at that, right? How about let's start to get really good at being your biggest cheerleader? Like, just start to be so good to yourself. Mind your inner talk. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Don't make yourself wrong. It's not even actually you. And start talking to yourself like you're the most important person in the world for you, because you are.
Absolutely.
You need to be the most important person in the world, and then you can give to others, and then you can be in service to others.
You are the center of your own universe, right? So like, you're not the center of everyone's universe. You're the center of your own universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So beautiful. Okay. So thank you so much. So if anybody wants to be able to connect further with Melanie, so wherever it is that you are watching this or listening to this on the podcast, is her contact information, but more particularly is your website, right? So like, is there anything in particular in your website that you want people to draw attention to, or what do you need them to know from there?
Oh, just look around and have fun. Like there's ways to work with me if you're interested. If you want to see if we're a good fit, you can book a call and talk to me. I have what I like to call like freebies. So I have like free webinars and free ebooks and things like that, free to like check out too. Just like
go
follow your intuition. That's all.
Beautiful. I love that. And I love intuition. I'm all about intuition. Yes. And so thank you so much, Melanie. And we could probably talk for hours. So I would love to be able to connect with you again and have some more conversations, because like I said, we we can definitely go through many of these rabbit holes together. And it sounds like we have a lot of the same ideals around relationships and how important it is to be able to have that relationship with yourself first.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming, and looking forward to connecting with you again further. So on that note, I will see everyone again next week, and we will chat soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.